Yo, what's going on, E7 fam? Pat here to once again talk about it with the Indomitable season infographic for World Arena. Yeah, I've talked about these in the past, and we're gonna jump into this and go over the whole, win rates, pick rates, things, and so on and so forth. My 2 cents. Sorry that I didn't get to this one yesterday. I've been absolutely swamped with editing a major video that I'm hopefully going to be releasing within the next couple of days, so please look forward to that. But yeah, let's just start it off by taking a look at their actual responses. Hello Airs, this is Epic7. Following our previous announcement on the Triumph Seasons infographic, we'd like to present the Indomitable Seasons infographics. We'd like to express our gratitude, blah, blah, blah. This season witnessed a significant shift in the drafting meta compared to the previous seasons, primarily due to the introduction of new heroes, which had a profound impact on the game. Newly added heroes like Ahmed and Architect Leica emerged as the new meta picks, amplifying the power of speed contesting compositions. Meanwhile, popular heroes from previous seasons like Auden, Faithless Litica, and Edward Hour continue to maintain their prominence. As a result, the stall team compositions previously set around Arowell lost its dominance. The current meta places a higher emphasis on flexible compositions, resulting in the increased value of versatile heroes like Conqueror, Mediator Quirk, and Apocalypse Ravi compared to the previous season. I'm not sure who coined the phrase originally, but Valky was the first one that I heard talk about it, and that's the concept of Exodia in the previous season. Conqueror Lilius, Mediator Quirk, and Apocalypse Ravi make up the three pieces of Exodia. If you have all three, you could kind of play whatever you want in the 4 or 5 slot. You probably already won because these characters are just, completely broken and are good in almost every single scenario. So, yeah, resulting in the increased value of versatile heroes. It's not so much versatile, more so that these characters are just that insanely good compared to the average power level of characters that are currently actually in the game. I do want to point out that like Ahmed and Leica were definitely turning points in the meta. They made it so that it was a lot worse to play turn 2. I famously said that I thought turn 2 was fine about a month and something ago, and I was wrong by the end of the season, and it's only gotten worse with the boss to characters like Jacko Valentine. So hopefully, and you'll see the data probably suggests this, we need to kind of move away from having really fast, aggressive comps and try to swing things back in favor of a more standard-based draft. There's the terminology that they use about pre-bans, so it explains what a pre-ban is. If a character is pre-banned in 50% of all games, that means that half of all the games that they evaluated between the Champion and Legend Leagues, that's how much that character be banned. So if a character, like for example, Lua here at 62.2% pre-ban rate, that means that in 62.2% of all games between Champion and Legend, this character was banned. And I believe the data at the end suggests that the average Champion player played like 350 games, average Emperor player is like around 1,100, average Legend players around like 1,500 or so, right? So that means that Lua is pre-banned in like, I don't know, like 80 to 100,000 games that it is measured throughout the season. But the point still stands. Lua is coming down from 67% or so from the previous season, right? I'll just actually jump down here so you can see. Almost 67% here on Lua versus last season. That means that 2/3 of your dedicated competitive players do not want to play against this character, like at all. And when we get to the pick rates, you'll see that this character is also picked for some reason, like in the top 5 or top 6 characters. That just means this character should be looked at. Like, this character's not okay. I think everybody recognizes that this character is just not okay. Loss of turns right at the start of a match is, for a character this fast with almost no counterplay, is just not okay. Like, Lua's entire kit is just the next logical step for other characters we've had in the past, like Faithless Litica or Fairy Tail Tenebria. It's just a loss of control. The character doesn't get to play the game. I'm sure they probably have to have noticed by now that over the course of every single season, whatever the dominant control character is, the one that's really fast, that there's not too many good options for, that's the thing that's going to end up being most likely the most pre-banned thing, because having your cooldown reset, being silenced before you can ever meaningfully set up your team, being stunned before you can ever meaningfully set up your team is incredibly unfun, uninteresting, and honestly downright frustrating. And That's pretty evident right here with Angel of Light Angelica being at the number 3 spot. She's actually up from last season, and that's because the slow characters like Destina are not the best right now, because you just get run over by Faithless Litica with a book on the team, or you get run over by Laika, or any of these other number of fast compositions. So, yeah. Fast plus control, really not enjoyable. Another character that embodies this is Conqueror Changes here, who, surprise, has a higher pre-ban rate than last season at almost 41%. And this is not the most shocking statistic, by the way, about Conqueror Changes that we'll talk about. We'll talk more about it when we get down here to the actual like first picks and things like that. You'll start to see. And when we get to the actual total picks, I think it'll paint a pretty clear picture that just like Lua here, Conqueror Changes is not okay. But I think most of you who have actually watched or played RTA is well aware of that. So yeah, these three girls right here, Lua, Conqueror Changes, and AOL, these characters are not okay and probably should be reevaluated. Ahmed is our 4th pre-banned hero. This is her first season that she's actually able to be live for this data. And she's almost up there with some of these other characters, right? And that is because Ahmed is very similar to her boyfriend Ran. When Ran came out, Green Violet was heavily played, so they gave him a skill nullifier so that he could just do the thing without ever really being punished. Ahmed is a limited non-attack skill hero, and in order to make sure that a non-attack skill hero that's limited doesn't get punished like a character like Amelia, they just gave her a team-wide skill nullifier so that way Celine has no impact on this character. Paladus has no real impact on this character unless they have high effectiveness and then get lucky off Abyssal Crown. So that's just, in general, a problem with design. Like, I really think that characters should have meaningful counterplay, like lots of meaningful counterplay. I think it makes for more fun and interesting games. I'm really honestly sick of just seeing characters that just get to do the thing. As one of my old friends used to say, get paid. I'm just tired of seeing characters that just get to go first, get to just use S3, completely shut down the opponent's team, get all of these things, gets an extra turn for some reason, gets to just do another thing, and they get to unload the whole kit right away. Like Lua, just S2, S3 gets to do all the things. Conqueror Changes, S3, S2, all the things. AOL, press S3, completely undo everything and make it so your opponent can do nothing. Ahmed, press S2, do all the things, get an extra turn, press S3, oh look, more things. Like, it's not a good look, I feel like, in terms of how they design some of the more powerful characters in this game. Bellion actually had a dip here in pre-ban, and that is largely because of this guy, Last Rider Crow, down here, and I believe they actually say that. Otherwise, nothing too crazy surprising here, outside of Arowell at 8.2% pre-ban rate. Who hurt you guys? You guys out there that are playing aggro and cleave, who hurt you? Like, this character is honestly like just a necessary response to how over the top cleave and aggro play actually is. Like, this is just a good mitigation knight, and it's relatively safe, which is why people play it. Like, if you were banning Arowell, I promise you that the person who plays Arowell has a Yulha or an Ambitious Tywin or a Last Rider Crow or Crimson Armin or a Trollmaker Crozet. Like, they have another mitigation character. Anybody who builds mitigation has multiple mitigation characters. Like, banning this does nothing. Like, if you want to win more games, stop banning Arowell, ban something that is more detrimental to your draft. Look at your match history, figure out what you're losing to. The Indomitable season, Lua continued to maintain her position as the most frequently pre-banned hero, just like in the previous season. However, there were notable changes in the overall pre-ban structure compared to before. New additions to the top 10 pre-ban list included Ahmed, Ikarina, and Paladus. Meanwhile, Bellion, who ranked second after Lua in the previous season, experienced a drop of around 10%, and that is because you can see on here. Additionally, the balance adjustment made to Last Rider Crow, who could effectively counter Bellion, resulted in a decline in her pre-ban rate. Yep. As the meta shifted towards speed-contested compositions, the importance of pre-banning heroes capable of effectively countering these compositions, such as Zio, Ikarina, and Paladus, significantly increased. And yeah, that's true because there are a lot of drafts that Zio and Sage Ball are the only real outs to that draft for slow players. Or there's a lot of aggressive drafts that only Ikarina is a good out, especially for newer and intermediate players who don't have a large roster. And in the case of Ahmed drafts, right, your only out is Zio or Politis. And if both Zio and Politis are banned, the only option to beat Ahmed is be faster. And that's not a realistic expectation in a game that has random speed chance and only has so many runs that you're allowed to get. You only have a finite number of resources to run Wyvern to get speed gear. So if you run out of resources and you don't get lucky and you come up against Ahmed and Zio and Politis are banned, you have no meaningful way to actually interact with that character. That's like saying just get lucky, just get 15%, just pray you don't die, so on and so forth. It's not a good feeling. So again, I would like to see more meaningful interaction with characters like Ahmed going forward. We're going to skip past all of these pre-bans because they're just rehashing the same thing here. Looking at first picks here, Conqueror Lilius, 30% first pick rate. Next closest person, Arowell, 8.7%. So, almost 4 times the rate, right? That's not okay. They have to know that's not okay. This character is pre-banned in almost, 2/5 of all games, right? Greater than 2/5 of all games, bordering on 50% of games, and is still somehow the most first pick character. 1 in 3 games, she's still the most first pick character, despite that massive ban rate. That's not okay. Honestly, there's a lot of characters on this list that are not okay for in varying degrees. Like, for example, Mediator Coeric is not okay because it invalidates a whole stat. And they should probably reevaluate that at some point. But here we are. We've opened Pandora's box, so that's fine. Spectre does not have meaningful answers to her, at least not enough meaningful ones, because you can combo Spectre with, like, Last Rider Crow. And again, there's not too many meaningful answers to Spectre in that case. Ahmed, again, we've already talked about not meaningful answers. Lua, not meaningful answers. AOL has a lot of meaningful answers. The problem is that you basically have to load your draft up with, like, half of your draft has to just be dedicated to AOL answers, because if they're not, then you just get banned out and then you just don't get to play the game, which is miserable. So yeah. Looking at the win rates here, Conqueror Lilius is the, I believe, 3rd highest win rate here of the season at 52.5%. The second highest is Ikarina at 52.7%. And then the highest win rate of the season, once again, is God Queen Bellion. She's basically been the highest win rate here all year. Her win rate is actually on the table that is below this one, and I'll show you. So those are our top 3 for this season. Yeah, pretty nuts. Conqueror Lilius actually increased her win rate from last season, despite being played in 10% more games and banned more often. Please, I'm begging you, Smilegate, take notice. This character is not okay. This character is not okay for the health of the game. Same thing here. Here's Lua. Lua is pre-banned in, what is that, 2/3 of games? And then 26% of games that she's actually able to be picked in, she's still banned. And yet she still has a higher than 50% win rate. Apocalypse Robbie, also pretty impressive win rate. Kind of busted character. Mediator, not as impressive. Spectre, still roughly the same, I believe, as last season. Just shy of 50%. But I think that's okay. One of the things that you can do in Epic 7 is have a losing win rate and just play very aggressive, fast cleave compositions and climb your way up the ladder, which I don't know if you fundamentally should be able to do, but you can. And that's why you'll notice a lot of aggressive characters like Spectre here, Ahmed, Zio, Ran, DJB, even Command Model Leica, and then Landy, who we'll talk about later. Those characters all have sub 50% win rate because people could climb the ladder with like a 40% win rate with just spamming aggressive comps. Like, honestly, win rate, as much as I would like for it to matter in Epic 7, it kind of really doesn't. Like, Big Smoke kind of proved that like a season or 2 ago, that you can literally lose 1,000 games straight, be all the way in bronze, and then try and make a legend push just to prove, like, hey, you could be legend with like a 7% win rate. And he almost pulled it off. So I don't put too much stock in win rates for like the faster characters that much. For example, DJB, I had great success with this character. But I think the people who are picking Zio like first pick all the time, people that they're playing against are probably just pivoting out against that, playing things like Karina, like Arowell, and just countering the other portions of the draft. So Zio has like I don't want to say like a hyperinflated, but an inflated loss rate, because there are people who will just pick Zio in spots that Zio should not be picked in, like first pick all the time, just so that they could guarantee have first, even though it's not particularly strong. If anything, I think that the win rate should suggest to people like, hey, first pick Zio, probably not that good, right? It's probably not super good. Same thing with like first pick Rand. It's probably not as good as you're thinking it is. You should probably mix up your draft a little bit. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. Like I said, I had success with DJB despite his low win rate, but maybe that's just me, and that's because I pick DJB reactively to things. I don't just take DJB second every game, for example, or first pick him every single game. I will pick DJB in spots where like my opponent has Zio, so that way I can have Conqueror plus DJB in order to nullify the Zio pick, for example. Arowell, who had the highest pick rate in the previous season, experienced a significant drop in her rate due to a shift in meta. Arowell played a pivotal role in stall comps, excelling and protecting allies and neutralizing enemy damage dealers. However, opting for her as a first pick limited the composition's flexibility, therefore increasing risk associated. Yes, that is actually true. Characters like taking Koweric early, or Arowell early, or Crimson Armin plus Mate early incurs some inherent risk, because you've dedicated 1 to 2 slots in your draft to characters that can't go fast, and characters that can go fast in this game absolutely will wipe the floor with the slower characters. So you basically can't ever really hard commit to having too many slow characters, it feels like, unless you just have God Gear, because you will just get run over. Conqueror has continued to dominate as the most commonly first picked hero of the season, a position she frequently held in previous seasons as well. This is like the most like chat GPT sentence ever, right? Like, we literally were like, how do we convey to them that we know Conqueror is broken without making it sound like we know she's broken? It's like, we have to acknowledge that this character is really good, but we're not going to do anything about it. That's what this sentence says. Like, this is just like she's broken. We know. We're not going to touch anything about it. It's like going on almost 2 years at this point. Conqueror is just still broken. Please, I'm begging you, Smilegate. As the meta shifted towards speed-contested compositions, the significance of heroes capable of securing the first turn and countering such compositions grew. Conqueror, known for her versatility, remained the preferred option for the first pick. And so you can see this is all this data that we just talked about. So let's talk about the top 20 picks overall. Spectre Tenebria is number 1. Not really surprising to me. Almost every aggro player has been going first pick Spectre for a while now. And if they're not, they're going her really early on in the draft, like 2-3, when they've got Last Rider Crowd. Like, they'll take Conqueror first, and then on the backswing, they'll take like LRK Spectre, or they'll take Spectre plus insert other thing that deters you from going Bellion, right? So that's not surprising. Hey, look, it's Exodia, 2-3-4. Again, not really surprising. All of these characters are just completely overtuned or invalidate game mechanics, or both, pretty much. Auden, also really overtuned, annoying character to play against, but less egregious than the top 4 that are here, in my opinion. 6, 7, and 8 are all characters that are counters to egregious characters that are overtuned or invalidate whole game mechanics. And then number 9 here is AOL, who's also just equally miserable to play against here. Landy is still somehow in the top picks, which is quite surprising. And if you look here at the actual win rates for the picks, you can see here we have God Queen Bellion at 54, like I said, and Landy here at 47.6%. Now, I know I said for DJB at 47.5% that I think that he's better than people give him credit. I don't think Landy is particularly good right now. I believe they reference it here in these paragraphs. I'll talk about it in a second. Spectre has emerged as the most popular pick amongst players this season, boasting the highest pick rate, renowned for her versatility and reliable survivability with stealth. Spectre Tenebria has garnered a reputation as a beloved hero. I don't agree with that. I don't think that Spectre is this beloved hero. I think that we are playing a game where we are playing for rating points on a competitive ladder, and this character has very few outs and can solo an entire team. So naturally, character is strong. Character has no real good, meaningful answers, especially if you have Last Rider Crow. Sounds like free real estate. Her dominance reached new heights thanks to the remarkable synergy with LRK, who emerges a bit here. Yep. So as the prominence of stall compositions, including Arowell and Destiny, diminished, the pick rate of versatile heroes such as Aravi, Mediator, and Karina saw an increase. Karina's not really versatile. That's just a character that you play because everyone's playing aggressive. Briar Witch was also frequently picked, as she's in for countering Savior Aiden, continues to influence the meta. It says somewhere on here that there is something. I will find this statement for you. Here we go, right here, in this paragraph. Landy, on the other hand, made an appearance as part of the compositions featuring Aravi and Command Model Leica late in the season. So this Landy Leica cleave was like the hotness for like the last month or two of the season. And honestly, I think that this is not a good draft at all. It loses really bad to Rimuru and Briar Witch and a number of other things. Like, it is a really easy draft to counter. But everybody kept leaning into it because they saw other popular content creators play it. And that's why Landy has this really bad win rate. So Landy is kind of the exception. Like DJB, like I said, really low win rate, but I think that people were just not picking that character in the right times. Like, people were just forcing Leica Landy against me left and right for like one of the weeks that I was playing. And I was like, man, this is really easy. This is like a free win every time. So that's why that is the way that it is. All right. So, going back to this, LRK and Arabi stood as heroes who underwent significant changes throughout the season. LRK's recent balance adjustment increased his overall damage and ability to neutralize heroes with ADS attacks, positioning as a prominent knight. That's obvious. Arabi as an effective counter to Last Row, which I don't think that this is like a... It's not wrong, but it's not... It's like disingenuous, right? Like, you don't pick Arabi to counter Last Rider Crow. Like, you don't see a Last Rider Crow and go... Yeah, I need to pick Aravi in that. You just look at your opponent's team and go, can they kill an Aravi here? No, I'm just going to jam it. And Last Rider Crow fits that to the T. There's so many characters that are in this same thing. Like, Aravi is just good damage, inevitability, healing, combat readiness, tanky as hell, revive, insane damage. Like, does it all. Probably should be looked at. So, yeah, I think that's misleading to the audience. Like, it's not that she's like this insane hard counter to LRK. She's just good against a lot of things, and he just happens to be another cog in that machine. Along with Mediator, Quirk has an increased pick rate. Yep, that's just because of the amount of nonsense, and he's Mr. Swiss Army Knife. Ambitious Tywin, whose pick rate initially rose in the early season, faded because of Last Rider Crow. Heroes like Karina and Ahmed, who were released before the season, continue to hold their positions on the list. Other heroes like Winter saw a significant decrease in their usage. This can be attributed to changes in the meta and the shifting presence of the equipment selection among players. Nah, I'm pretty confident it has to do with this 43.7% win rate, which everyone collectively looked at and was like, oh, like, it's not like Spectre where it's slightly under 50%, or like Briar Witch where it's like 48%, but we recognize it's still good, or even like Landy or DJB where, okay, maybe we're forcing it in spots where we probably shouldn't, but the character might be. 43 is a lot lower. That is a lot lower. It's a whole magnitude lower. And even in the best cases, right, like, Winter is pretty much a counter pick against like Destina, right? Like, Bellion is a counter pick with 54% win rate. Nobody's just jamming Bellion every game. They're jamming Bellion because they see the most picked hero is Spectre. Therefore, it's the best time to use this tool, and we get paid for it with a 54% win rate. When you see Destina, 51%, and Mediator, 50.8%, which is the best time to counter pick with Winter, and you walk out with 43.7%, then maybe... And I've realized this, like, I used to stand this character and think this character was pretty good and people were using her in the spots that she couldn't. But as you start to play against this character, you run into the Benny Mara problem where if I don't press the button, then the Winter is not scary because the S1 doesn't really do anything. Like, just play Solitaria whenever you think you want to play Winter. Just you have a better chance of carrying the game with her. The character just has no real game impact if they don't give you Blackout over and over again. And her games always go to Frenzy 7 or Frenzy 8. And that's pretty much where the teams that you're playing Winter into want to be anyway. They're really slow, methodical teams that will slowly dismantle you if the game goes long. So yeah, even me, like, as much as I like Winter on paper, every match I ran into her, I just absolutely destroyed her. All right, so season close. Let's wrap up this video real quick by talking about everything in this plus the actual closing. So this is the average win rate across the legend ratings for each of the servers. You could see here, Japan doing the best in terms of average win rate. Good on them. Global with the most amount of players, right? Korea, actually an increase from last time. Pretty good on them. Number of games played per legend player, near 1,500 here, as opposed to 1,350 or so from last season. Looking at the Emperor League, you can see here almost 1,100 games is the average match count. I had about 620, so I'm way below the average here in terms of number of games to get to Emperor League specific data. You can see number of games played. Bronze doesn't even really finish their placements. Silver plays barely more than placements. Gold plays about 50. Master plays, interestingly, 52. And this is largely because people are only here for the skin. Most people don't really care about World Arena and probably have gear that's very easily able to get them to champion. So they just come in the last week, bulldoze it with a 61% win rate. And that's why the win rate is much higher and the average match count is lower here than these other ranks above them. It's because most people who are just ending in Master are there for the skin and probably are in one of these two brackets, Champion or Emperor, realistically. Challenger, 160 games. Champion, 320 games or so. And then, like I said, Emperor and Legend. All right, let's read our overall analysis. This season was characterized by a focus on versatility in countering opponents' drafts with the addition of heroes who could take turns early in the battle. As a result, the popularity of composition centered around Unbound Knight Arowell declined compared to previous season. We are increasing flexibility in the drafting phase while the increased flexibility in the drafting phase allowed heirs to experience various battle series. Many face difficulties if they lacked a wide range of composition options. At least you recognize this, but you have to understand that if this is like the best mitigation source, this is Crimson Armament, and they're on the decline, then that should tell you that mitigation's not strong in your game. That aggressive strategies are simply better than not. And I hope they address this, because if you've ever played other games, like use League of Legends, for example, right? If you are losing, it's best to build some kind of defensive stat. And the amount of gold required to purchase defensive items is less than it is to purchase offensive items, because if offensive items were the same or cheaper than defensive items, why would you ever build defense? Just build offense. It's more cost effective and helps you win the game, whereas defense helps you not lose the game. So mitigation should inherently be something that is in your game, and if it's not, then you have a balance between a fundamental unbalancing between aggressive and non-aggressive strategies. We are dedicated to ensuring a balanced distribution of power amongst team compositions through various means, including balance adjustments and new heroes. Based on our thorough investigation, mage heroes usage of the current meta, we have made the decision to remove Battle Frenzy that increased the final speed of mages. That was the thing that gave mages 7 speed. We recognize that mages hold a significant influence in the current meta, and the Battle Frenzy effect has the potential to exacerbate the efficiency gap amongst mage heroes due to variations in equipment settings. I think that's just them acknowledging that Book is really that good, and that's one of the main reasons why people pick mages, although Book is kind of on a decline because there are other ways to actually be aggressive or cleave without actually needing Book. Furthermore, we will adjust the standard Battle Frenzy effect and the applied turns to prevent battles from lasting excessively long and mitigate the relative disadvantage certain stats may have in prolonged battles. This is the lose 5% of your max health earlier, but ER and effectiveness changes are not as good as they were in previous Battle Frenzy, so ER kind of is a little bit better in later Battle Frenzy. But most of these Battle Frenzy changes, while small, still push the needle further towards the aggressive, more so than the actual tank down style, which, again, we already have a fundamental unbalancing there. As mentioned in previous seasons' infographics, we have been actively working on introducing new methods to reduce the entry barrier to World Arena. I would like to see what their thought process is, because in my eyes, right, there are two fundamental issues that are keeping people from getting into World Arena as a format. Number one is the ability to actually meaningfully have characters and have them geared, right? it is very difficult for a new or intermediate player coming into this game into its 5th year to acquire the necessary pieces that they need to do well. You're missing so many Moonlight 5s and so many limiteds. There needs to be easier to access characters at the RGB 5-star or specialty change level that do things maybe not as well, but do things similar to other characters. Like, we need ways for slower players to contest speed other than just ML5s like Sage Ball and Zio. Like, there needs to be easily accessible ways to do that. And gearing characters in this game is an RNG fiesta, as I'm sure many of you know. It's very, very difficult for you to actually get a new character and gear it in a meaningful amount of time with actual good gear. Either that's because you don't have enough gold, you don't have enough charms, things just don't roll the way you want them to, you can't get the right gear with the right substats all the time. So it's just very difficult to assemble a roster in any meaningful amount of time. Like, I think Prof Boy, for being only like a 6 or 7 month year old player, the fact that he is playing RTA at the way he, like the rate he's going, is honestly remarkable. It's pretty phenomenal that he was able to get champion in such a short amount of time on that account. But a lot of people are not so lucky. Like, they don't happen to get meta-defining characters like Mediator Coeric on their account and like happen to have joined just late enough to get Icarina. Like, they might not have these pieces, and they don't get to compete because of that, and that's upsetting. So yeah, that's the number one thing that they think they need to address. And then the number 2 thing is what I call the fighting game problem, which I like playing fighting games. You may know this. I played a lot of Street Fighter 6 with Carr and Divine lately, and even though I get my butt kicked, I always come back because, to me, the beauty of fighting games is the camaraderie with your friends. It's like kind of like going to the gym. You're working on improving and getting better at that game, and the journey is what makes it fun. But for some people, they just want to win, or at least feel like they are competing. And traditionally, the hardest problem to solve with fighting games is that they are very hard to be good at, very hard to get into it, just like how it's hard to get into World Arena in Epic 7. And the first experience that people have when they jump into their very first match, there's a chance that they just get, destroyed. Somebody wipes the floor with them. And that doesn't feel good. And if that happens 2 or 3 times when you queue into ladder, it's going to be very disheartening, it's going to be very demoralizing, and you're going to want to not play the format. And if you've ever watched any of the lower level play, or you're actually in this, I'm sure you probably know, because I watch it in the Epic 7 official Discord. Cleave is really dominant in like the lower ladders, and a character like Green Celine is a really good counter pick down there. It's just aggressive city. There's very few ways to mitigate damage coming out from players, either because they don't know or they just can't actually build those kinds of characters. And they just get run over. Games are just over in a flash. It's just explosive amounts of damage coming out from both sides. And if you're on the receiving end of that repeatedly, it's going to feel really bad. So games just are over too fast and leave players wondering, how the heck did I lose? Like, there's nothing to teach them or help reinforce, like, or show them the way, right? So as long as the easiest way to get into the game is just aggressive play, I think it's going to be really hard for you to try to get people into World Arena. But that's just my opinion. If you disagree with it, as always, you can let me know down in the comments below. Last thing here, we are pleased to announce that our preparations are nearing completion. We'll be soon sharing exciting news about a new mode and system enhancements. We will kindly ask for your patience as we finalize the details. So I'll be looking forward to that. I'll probably do a video on whatever this is that we're actually talking about it. So that's going to be it for me, guys and girls, in this video. If I missed anything, or again, you disagree with me, let me know down in the comments below. I should be streaming sometime this weekend, probably tomorrow night, over on twitch.tv /IM_Sue. So IM_TSU. So if you want to stop by, feel free to do so. I do have plans to do a bunch of streaming content because I got challenged to basically take a new account all the way to the end of episode 3. So we'll try to do that as together as a stream. So if you're keen for that, head on over, check it out. I'll link my Twitch down in this video's description. As always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you all hopefully very soon. Bye-bye now.